This week on the Virtual Skeptics, Bob swept up and Eve discusses Britain's new Minister of Magic. Sharon goes ice fishing for UFOs in the Baltic Sea, and Tim is just Tim. And I'm
plays music,
Gregory. Yes, he plays music very loudly. And I don't have any memes. I am memeless. I am immemeable. I have none. Welcome to the Virtual Skeptics. And I just turned off my iPad. Now I don't have my notes. I am actually sitting in Texas right now, which is why that is different. But our esteemed panel, see, I wasted time, is, let's see, this week it's Bob Blaskiewicz, as usual, CSI's conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger for Skeptical Humanities, and the Swift blog contributor. I like saying that word. Eve Siebert, editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities. And I'll stop swinging my chair. Sharon Hill, editor of Doubtful News and author of CSI's Sound Sciencey web column. And last but not least, Tim Farley, JREF fellow and creator of whatstheharm.net and Skeptical Software Tools blog. Welcome.
How's Texas?
Howdy! Welcome to Texas. Wow, is that a train? There's a train coming by my hotel right now.
We can't hear it. Do the sound effects. Okay, stop.
Okay, so yeah. So apparently I'm in Texas this week. The internet here is fabulous, thanks to the beautiful, wonderful residents in Clearwater, Texas. I am here for my long-awaited NASA experiment on the parabolic aircraft. Next week we are going on
the Vomit Comet?
Yes, the Vomit Comet. 4 flights. I'm going to be on 2, and I'll be running a robot and poking a target that's floating in 0G.
I would be so scared.
And I'll be vomiting at the same time, apparently.
Wow.
So.
No, I'm totally jealous and at the same time totally not.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and I am exactly the same.
You need a robot that can actually clean up vomit in 0G.
Get on that.
Fly through the air.
Yes, I'll get on that.
Kind of like a hovering Roomba type thing?
Yeah.
Yes, a 0G Roomba. That'd be awesome. I'll get right on that. See if we have a NASA budget for that. So, if anybody wants to follow my adventures over the next week and a half, I have a blog, actually a Tumblr up called robotpartoftheday.tumblr.com, and I've been posting pictures daily and with descriptions, and it will probably have lots and lots and lots of posts starting tomorrow. We do our setup in the hangar tomorrow, and then on Monday we move to the plane and we fly Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if weather permits. So that's my big announcement.
That's fantastic.
Awesome.
Yep.
DragonCon came and went.
That it did.
Yes, it did. Who was at DragonCon? Sharon was at DragonCon, and Tim was at DragonCon. You guys had a good time. I was following the pictures on Facebook and stuff, and
it was great.
Crying alone.
It was really crowded. I was a bit overwhelmed by the crowds.
Yes.
Especially Saturday when I got lost in the Marriott and couldn't find the sky bridge over. I'm like, it's got to be on one of these levels. Why do I feel like I'm in some sort of strange Twilight Zone episode where there is no sky bridge? I think it was just
There's no sky bridge.
Well, I ended up on the ground floor and just said, I'm getting the hell out of here, and I left the building.
Yeah.
And walked. But yeah, because this was my first DragonCon, and maybe we could talk about that a little at the end, or you want to talk about it now?
Let's go ahead. We got a little bit of time.
I went to some of the paranormal track events.
Ooh.
And some of the skeptic events were something that I wasn't really as interested in, but I wanted to experience the paranormal track and how they presented their thing and what they did and what kind of people attended those events. And Tim also went to a couple, I know, and it was enlightening. And the last one I went to was about the case of the American werewolf, which investigated or talked about the dogmen sightings in the U.S. and mainly in the around the Great Lakes region. And found a couple kindred souls there. Very skeptical people who realized that the evidence for these types of things was just not there. Yeah, it was interesting. And other things that were interesting was going to like the Ghost Hunters panel and finding absolutely no content there.
Yeah.
Or going to
Were
the
there any
paranormal.
ghosts?
No, there was just like, hey, how y'all doing? Who you here to see at the con? And it was 20 minutes of wasted time, and then a fan forum. Oh, we love you guys, and this is my favorite episode, and what's your favorite color? And it was nonsense. It was pointless.
Wow.
Really bad. But the content compared to the skeptic track, the skeptic track and the science track and the space track was, the caliber was, miles higher
Yeah.
than the paranormal track.
They're pretty
Very
serious about it.
How well attended were things over there?
Well, the Ghost Hunters was fairly well attended. Josh Gates of Destination Truth got a lot of people, and he's very charming, and he's very cool to listen to, and I think that I like listening to him. So he was okay, but not the skeptic track. Most of the events were full standing room only.
Yeah.
A significant difference.
A little bit less on Monday, but some people leave early, so a lot of people aren't there on Monday. But
Could I ask you guys what your take on Mark Edwards' performance?
Yeah, I watched that on the Ustream feed.
Oh yeah.
I missed that one. I was someplace else. I don't know where, but I was
Did you see it,
someplace
Tim?
else.
I only saw part of it because I had to run off to something. But the nice thing about the Skep Track at DragonCon is everything is recorded and it all gets posted.
Cool beans.
So
check that
just keep an eye out on videos.skeptrack.org. And actually, you can see all last year's stuff and the year before is all there. So you can see old stuff. And as soon as Mark gets a chance to decompress from all the work he did setting up, he has quite an impressive setup. He has at least 3 cameras, if not 4.
I hear that he got the stage from the U2 360 tour and put it up in the track room.
Might have been. I mean, he's got a big light rig and a whole. I twitched
the same
photo of the console that he's got. And it's like just a giant desk.
So it's the same rig as they had last year, because that was amazing.
That was really impressive.
It's similar. He made an enhancement. They put a dedicated camera behind the panelists that was hidden behind the screen back there to shoot the person at the microphone asking questions.
Oh, good.
So it was just pointed at the right spot, and they didn't have to have a third camera operator. The only problem was if someone really tall asked a question, you'd get this. I have a question. Because there was no one to tilt the camera.
Yeah. So I'll write a blog post on it sometime. My Virgin DragonCon experience.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about it then.
There are a lot of virgins at DragonCon. Thank you. It's a geek thing. Yeah.
Great.
Here all week.
So also coming up, let's see here. Our Skeptic Camp in DC is in 2 weeks. Just want to mention that really quick. skepticampdc.org. I think that's about it for announcements. Do we have anything else anybody else wants to bring up? Any rebuttals from previous episodes? No? Okay, well, I think we should probably just get started. Bob is up first in his tangled web of deceit. Deceit?
That too.
Something about, let's see.
Lying.
So, yeah.
Blasphemy.
Well, yeah, today we're going to talk about something, what happens when a major world religion has access to a police force. A Christian girl named Risha Mashir was arrested in Islamabad on the 16th of August when a neighbor reported that she'd burned papers that contained verses from the Quran. Now, the reports of what is alleged to have happened are varied and pretty significantly, but I've done my best to disentangle them. The first information report, the complaint, was filed by a neighbor, Muhammad Umad, who claimed that the girl had taken 10 pages of a book called the Nurani Qaeda, burned them and plugged them into a garbage can. The Nurani Qaeda is a sort of child's primer for Quranic Arabic. so you can read the original.
So it's a kid's Bible.
It's a kid's Bible, but it's considered a holy text.
Okay.
So you don't get to burn it. The neighbor contacted the local imam, Khalid Chisti, and the imam alerted the authorities and had the girl arrested. Ashes and pages of the Quran were found in her bag. In the aftermath of the arrest, there was a mass exodus of Christians from the slum where this happened. Some 2,300 Christians left because basically a mob was preparing to attack their homes. The imam who had called the police, Chisti, used the mosque's loudspeakers to rile up the crowd and tell the local Christians to leave, saying, quote, "All you churas," which is a derogatory term for Christians, "must leave here immediately or we will pour petrol on you and burn you alive."
Wow.
An advisor to the Prime Minister on Minorities Affairs asked clerics to not allow the town to be attacked and raised questions about the legitimacy of the arrest. Now, there's a lot of dispute about this, about the status of the girl. Human rights workers and her family say that the girl is 11 years old and has Down syndrome.
Oh.
Yeah. And the police have asserted that she's 16 and 100% aware of what she did. And she was determined by a medical exam to be both a minor and developmentally delayed, but that decision has been they haven't acted on it or accepted that decision because of a protest on the part of the accuser's lawyer, so the imam's lawyer, who is demanding a bone scan to determine precisely how old this girl is.
Wow.
The lawyer is a piece of work. His name is Rao Abdur Rahim, and he specializes in prosecuting blasphemy cases. And observers in country who saw his involvement said it was a very bad sign for the girl. He's not what you would call a moderate, saying, quote, "Those who burned the Quran are burning us." This girl has confessed. Even if she is found to be 14, the offense is so serious, the law says there cannot be leniency. She cannot have bail. And this would be a mandatory life sentence. He also told The Guardian, quote, "If the court is not allowed to do its work because the state is helping the accused, then the public has no other option except to take the law into their own hands." Right? It makes you wonder why he even has a job in law if you're just going to ignore law. But so on the 20th, the Telegraph reported that the Prime Minister, Asif Ali Zardari, had ordered an investigation into the arrest. The blasphemy law has been criticized by the West and human rights organizations for the way it's been used to settle fairly minor disputes. Opposing this law, it has gotten 2 high-profile politicians assassinated in the last year, or in 2011, including the Punjab governor and the minorities minister. Last month, another mentally ill person was seized from a police station in the province where he was being held on a similar charge, and he was killed by a mob. So there have been problems in the past with respect to these blasphemy laws and challenging them. The twist in the case that really caught my attention, though, on the 2nd of September, the government arrested the imam, Khalid Chisti, for planning burned pages of the Quran on the child and charging him with blasphemy. Right? 3 worshippers at his mosque, including the prayer caller, came forward and told the judge about the imam, saying that he'd add the pages. That he'd add the page to the Quran to the burned pages against their protests. They testified that he'd replied, quote, "You know this is the only way to expel the Christians from this area." This let the government out of a rather precarious situation, or at least gives them an option out. They seem to have been under intense internal pressure to convict and intense international pressure to acquit. The arrest of the imam for the exact same charge as the girl is the only contingency that I could think of that might make people question what's going on here. a number of issues strike me as important about the story. After the fact, the imam gave an interview after the original arrest. He gave an interview to the AFP where he claimed that the girl had burned the pages deliberately as part of a, quote, Christian conspiracy to insult Muslims, and said that action should have been taken sooner to stop what he called their, quote, anti-Islam activities. This is an old accusation, one that has been recklessly hurled at Jews, whose supposed actions against Bibles and Eucharists was often used as a pretext for violence against them. It seems to me that the nature of the crime is one that destroys its own evidence, and most of these incidents seem to hinge largely on accusation. This is dangerous because in the eyes of the mob, an accusation is equivalent to guilt. And I've read, I want to note that I've read, dozens of reports of this story from all points in its development, and nowhere in the last couple of days have I seen any mention of taking legal action against the imam or the lawyer for threatening Christians, inciting violence against them, or proposing to subvert the justice system. I should mention, of course, that the even hardline Islamists in the region have said that the prosecution of an illiterate minor with a developmental problem is an inappropriate application of the blasphemy law. So there's that. But she's still being held. There's apparently a lawyer strike which was used to stall things a little bit more. I think that the judge knows that his life might depend on what he decides. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be him.
Well, I have to say, thanks for bringing us such an uplifting story. Wow.
I do what I can, yeah.
So is there any international call to do anything for this?
Yeah, there's a lot. And most of it has to do, I mean, people are protesting on the girl's behalf. And that seems to be pretty uniform. But the overriding issue are these blasphemy laws. And that's what's getting the most. It's drawing attention to the blasphemy laws, and that's where people are focusing their attention.
Really quick, I wanted to mention to everybody who's watching that this is live, and you can ask questions if you post a comment on our YouTube feed or on most of the feeds. I think we're watching most of the feeds that we post the link to the YouTube in. If you post a question, we'll try to fit it in. But unfortunately, you can't join the chat. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was to gold.
Bob, what did you think about Chris Stedman's article earlier this week about Islamophobia in the atheist community?
I think he had a good point, that we ignore anti-Muslim sentiments in our own in the U.S. at our own risk. I suspect that's true. There's a long history of religious minorities working together. I think of the founding of our country when the Baptists were a minority. They were all for separation of church and state back then.
Or when the Catholics were persecuted.
Yeah.
They had to start their own state.
Yeah, I mean, well, and so these, there's precedent for it, and I think it is liberty enhancing, and I think it can be a useful alliance, and also, quite frankly, I think it's the right thing to do. So
the fact that you're dealing with extremists, being that the extremists are taken and put as the face of Islam
is really unfortunate, and that's the thing. People who I would have suspected, well, they're just going to burn this Christian, have come out in support of this girl, and that it was a learning experience for me. So good on them. I still think a blasphemy law is kind of antiquated, and but it seemed to be a step in the right direction. But yeah, Chris has done some pretty good stuff, and I enjoy his columns.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very thoughtful. It was for sure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow. On that cheery note.
Just can we just have a moment of prayer now?
Yes, please.
Oh.
All right.
Can I burn my NASA manual? Oh, sorry. Would that be blasphemy? I don't know. Okay, so moving on.
Just to something a little bit more.
Hopefully this is
depressing.
going to be funny, because I'm really looking forward to this. Eve is going to talk about Britain's new Minister of Magic, which I hope is not Dumbledore.
Well, no, I have good news. Britain has a new health secretary. Jeremy Hunt, Conservative Member of Parliament for South West Surrey, was named Secretary of State for Health yesterday, September 4th, after a cabinet reshuffle. So that's great. Nothing could go wrong. Oh, wait. His appointment has been somewhat controversial for a number of reasons. For starters, in his previous position of Culture Secretary, he reportedly attempted to banish the celebration of the National Health Service from Danny Boyle's Olympic opening ceremonies fandango. Andy Burnham, the shadow health secretary, said, quote, "Right now the NHS needs somebody who believes in its values and is ready to stand up for it. Instead, the Prime Minister has given it to the man who reportedly tried to remove the NHS tribute from the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games," unquote. Of even greater concern to anyone interested in like science or effective healthcare, the health secretary supports homeopathy. New Scientist dubbed him the Minister of Magic.
There we go.
There he is. Actual photo.
That's an actual photo? Wow.
It is an actual photo, yes. Okay, not but it is an actual photo.
Yes.
It's
It's a screenshot of.
Yeah. In 2007, Hunt signed Commons' early day motion in support of the positive contribution homeopathy and other alternative therapies had made to the NHS. The motion states, quote, "that this House welcomes the positive contribution made to the health of the nation by the NHS homeopathic hospitals. Notes that some 6 million people use complementary treatments each year, believes that complementary medicine has the potential to offer clinically effective and cost-effective solutions to common health problems faced by NHS patients, including chronic, difficult-to-treat conditions such as musculoskeletal and other chronic pain, eczema, depression, anxiety, and insomnia, allergy, chronic fatigue, and irritable bowel syndrome, and expresses concern that NHS cuts are threatening the future of these hospitals and calls on the government actively to support these valuable national assets."
They keep using that
unquote.
word. I do not think it means what they think it means.
Yes. In his reply to a constituent who had written to point out to Hunt that homeopathy, doesn't work, Hunt said, quote, "I understand that it is your view that homeopathy is not effective, and therefore that people should not be encouraged to use it as a treatment. However, I'm afraid that I have to disagree with you on this issue. Homeopathic care is enormously valued by thousands of people, and in an NHS that the government repeatedly tells us is patient-led, it ought to be available where a doctor and patient believe that a homeopathic treatment may be of benefit to the patient," unquote. Now, okay, here's the thing. I believe that human sacrifices would be an effective treatment for migraine. So I'm currently looking for a doctor who agrees with me on that. And if I can find one, I totally expect my insurance to cover my dark rituals.
Perhaps
So,
Pakistan.
prayer is valued. Witch doctors are valued. That doesn't mean they
Well,
work.
exactly. And voodoo, because I'm also a big supporter of the British Veterinary Voodoo Society. They believe that if homeopathic magic is the valid treatment, then so is voodoo magic. And according to their website, quote, "the principle of voodoo healing is simple. As like affect like, like affects like, an appropriately manufactured and treated wax doll or cloth puppet may substitute for the patient, and manipulations performed on the doll substitute for those performed on the patient. Techniques of visualization and channeling of healing are easy to learn, and it is possible to combine voodoo with conventional or allopathic medicine simply by
Oh, yeah.
You had me
ministering
up until
the medicine
allopathic.
to
Yes.
the doll rather than to the patient, unquote.
Okay, I got one thing to say.
Mhm.
Show me on the doll where the homeopath touched you.
I would think you could use homeopathic treatments on the doll, too. I mean, that would be like extra bonus efficacious.
Sure.
Now, the response to Hunt's appointment has not been entirely enthusiastic in the medical community. Dr. Edzard Ernst, professor of complementary medicine at the University of Exeter, which was the first such position in the world. He trained as a homeopath, but now studies homeopathy and other alternative and complementary therapies from a science and evidence-based perspective. And he said, quote, "To praise the positive contribution of homeopathy to the NHS does not bode well for the new person in charge of UK healthcare. One can only hope that with the reality of the new job, there will be a more rational insight in the actual evidence on this topic," unquote. And Sir John Krebs, professor of zoology at Oxford University, said, quote, "There's overwhelming evidence that homeopathic medicine is not effective. It would be a real blow for those who want medicine to be science-based if the Secretary of State were to promote homeopathy because of his personal beliefs," unquote. And in the Telegraph, Tom Chivers compared Hunt's appointment to, quote, "putting someone who believes the Second World War began in 1986 in charge of the Department of Education," unquote.
Oh my gosh.
Hold on. How was it? I'm going to put that up on the big screen.
No.
Okay.
So
And-
homeopathy is under severe pressure right now in the UK because of the existing law that basically prohibits its being marketed the way it is.
Right.
And they're under the impression that they could either they can't change the law because I guess it's a European Union law, something like that.
Yeah, something like
But
that.
they're trying to get the law ignored so they can continue to market their products as effective as treatment and not as a medical product or as a confectioner, whatever they want to market it as. So I was wondering if his appointment in this position, the homeopaths are jumping up and down, having a party saying, "Yay, we got someone on our side."
Yeah, I would expect so. What I've been seeing, though, just so far, are mostly the controversy of, sensible people saying, "Oh, holy crap, this might not be the right person for the job because he's not actually interested in real healthcare."
What are his
Well, he may be
qualifications?
interested in real healthcare, but also pretend healthcare.
What are his qualifications? Do you know?
He's done some other stuff. I mean, health qualifications.
Career
nothing.
politician?
Yeah, basically, mostly. He's been, as I said, he was secretary for culture.
Yeah, culture. I remember I was hearing something like that, some artistic end of things.
Yeah, and they were also involved in the Olympics as well, which is where the thing with the opening ceremonies comes up.
So that totally reminds me of the FEMA guy that used to be the horse show director. Yes, you're qualified.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or having John Bolton be our ambassador to the UN, like the one guy who hates it
Mr.
above all.
Diplomacy. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Suck It World.
Oh dear.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So time to switch gears again, I guess. There were no questions on the feed, so we're gonna move on. Sharon's got a story about UFOs in the Baltic Sea.
This is a long and sordid story. It actually begins a year ago, and this deep sea salvage company, Ocean Explorer, captured this. I'm assuming they were looking for things to dig explore and to hunt for treasure. Captured the side scan sonar image in 80 meters underwater in the Baltic Sea. And according to the initial reports, it was like 60 meters in diameter and had this long tail. You can see the picture there, like 400 meters long. And the leader of the expedition, Peter Lindbergh, went to the press saying it was potentially a crashed UFO. Okay, and that idea again, it went wild because it looked like the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars movies had crashed into the seabed. It was
Can we bring that up?
Well, it was also called a USO, an unidentified submerged object.
Mm.
Yeah. So if you look at it, yeah, it sort of looks like the Millennium Falcon, but that's because they drew the edges around it and made you see that.
Yeah.
But it's a sonar image, so it lacked definition.
Anything looks like the Millennium Falcon if you draw the Millennium Falcon on it.
Around it, exactly.
Actually, to me,
That's
it
a
looked
very
more
good
like
point.
a Cylon Raider.
But it was awesome that it looked like something, so they ran with that. So speculation ran wild with various websites and forums. Everyone had a creative idea of what this could be. Then what they did was they made these stylized recreations of it, like a 3D images, like in graphics programs, to make it look like one thing or another. So that's all over the web. So other than a UFO, it was thought it was possibly a relic from a giant World War II device placed there by the Nazis to disrupt Soviet submarine navigation. It was remnants of an underwater city. Maybe it was Bikini Bottom, if you're familiar with the SpongeBob SquarePants, an excellent cartoon, by the way. Or my favorite one was that it was a giant plug that you pulled and it would drain the ocean away.
Yeah. Were there pygmies down there too?
Yeah. Or it was a gateway to a hidden world on the seafloor. So
Atlantis.
Yeah, Lindbergh made sure to get more speculation into the press every month to maintain interest in this thing. So now he's got this Swedish team. They call themselves the Ocean X team. They claim the object was giving off electrical interference that kept foiling their attempts to investigate it. That was in the news. So like I said, the sonar picture was lacking in resolution, and it had, experts would say it had these processing artifacts, and it only looked like the spaceship because you made it look like a spaceship by drawing around it. So imaging experts got to wondering about what his true motives were, and then he started courting investors for the next phase of the project to send a submersible or dive down there to investigate. Now, obviously it's expensive to run such an expedition, so it was their advantage, I think, to keep the hype going. And it was even rumored that Lindbergh was planning to take some wealthy tourists down there to see it. So for some reason, in January, media coverage just exploded on this. It began in August, and then all of a sudden in January it was on CNN. And from the start, it was overhyped and lacking in any scientific methodology at all. There was no scientific people on board. It was just these deep sea treasure hunters. So, but that didn't stop, all the news stations, even Discovery News, from posting Lindbergh's ridiculous ideas about the object. And at one point he says it's not made of metal, we know that, but it still could be a spaceship if they made spaceships out of rock. And he was serious.
My spaceship is made of rock. It doesn't fly that well.
No, you know what? There's a concrete ship off the edge of New Jersey. It's sunk. Yeah, but the press never seemed to ask the right experts. So now again in February now, Lindbergh revealed he had another anomaly. Let's see if we could see that picture he'd found on the seafloor. So now he had two. Now the second anomaly
Space Kitty
was the result of looking through the noise of the first one. And to me, it was exactly this cat.
Yeah.
So, but then, so the next month, now it's March, he announced a project called the Baltic Cowboys was being filmed to document the project, and shooting would begin the following month for a special, which the promo boasts. You should have seen the promo video about the mystery that puzzles the world. I mean, the hype was just incredible on this. In May, the Ocean X folks released a promo video where they fashioned themselves as some adventure team investigating this mysterious anomaly again. And in June, they finally got a closer look with the actual dive. The footage looked nothing like the original object, And from what little was shown, it was just the seafloor covered with sediment and boulders, and you couldn't tell the scale. They took samples, which turned out to be ordinary rock. So at this point, I'm looking at it, and as a geologist, I looked into the history of the Baltic Sea near Sweden. And my first thought was these up-close pictures look like glacial deposits. That made the most sense. And the formation had a roundness to it. It had divots. It had cobbles. Looked just like a glacially derived feature. Yet no geologist was ever quoted for the press articles. And I searched for it because to me it was the obvious answer. There was no mention made.
Real scientists involved.
Yeah, no, they didn't want to do that because it was a crashed UFO. That's what it was. But
yeah, what would a geologist have to do with the crash UFO? I mean,
exactly.
What,
yeah. See, yeah. I said.
Are you saying that aliens can't ride glaciers?
Well, I suppose they could. But those darn things melt and crash on top of you and dump their load of sediment, and they scour rock, and they do all sorts of nasty things to the rock. So finally, this past week, a dose of rationality was injected when Yahoo News quoted an expert who says, "These features are exactly what one would expect to see in a glacial basin, which is what the Baltic Sea is, a region carved out by the glacial ice long ago." So it took a whole year for this hype to be resolved, although it's probably not resolved. I'm sure the TV special will still follow. And
that's just one report of a glacier.
Exactly.
Come on.
Yeah, I know there's all these other.
Well, that just shows that geologists and scientists are closed-minded.
Yeah, I know. Even though we have the evidence for these things, it's just not TV worthy to talk about it. So this seemed to be like one of those examples of journalism by press release, where the media swallows the hype or knows that it will get eyeballs on it. They sell the hype instead of going to the rational explanation because they want people to hit their site. That's what it seemed like to me. And another thing that I think reminded me of, it parallels the expedition to Nikamaroro, where they thought they found Amelia Earhart's plane. Questionable weak claims prompted this expedition, funded in part, at least, by a TV production company. And then the result ends up being ambiguous pictures and failures. And, did they learn nothing from opening Al Capone's vault years ago? They buy into these crank theories, and
World looks great on TV.
They have nothing of concrete to go on, and they just hype, and they open the vault, and there's nothing there. So it was hype and the ultimate letdown.
The story it reminds me of was one about 4 years ago or so when they discovered Noah's Ark again.
Right. That's
there was a large rock formation that, if you squinted, maybe it looked like there were beams there, and they suggested maybe it was petrified rock or petrified wood. But on Mount Ararat. But when you look at it, there was no rigor. It was, kind of a story almost built for Fox News.
I think that just goes to show that Noah's Ark was space aliens in their rock spaceship.
Yeah.
Riding glaciers.
Somebody needs to draw a picture of this because it's awesome.
And at the bottom, you need to say your argument is invalid.
They're riding in on glaciers.
This is our meme episode, everyone.
So they're riding in on glaciers, so it's the world's slowest alien invasion.
Yeah.
It's taking 10,000 years for the aliens to arrive.
Well, that it's sneaky. We'd never suspect that.
That's true.
Well, until they post it on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of those ridiculous stories.
I love it. It was a great story. Speaking of the internet, looks like Tim's got a roundup of apps, and apps. Look at that. Wow, lots of apps.
Well, it's 2 new apps. I don't normally talk about political stuff, but this is a big election year here in the U.S., and there were 2 new apps that just came out this week, and I've got both of them here on 2 different devices, and hopefully I can demo them. But, in my talk at TAM in July, I talked about skeptics building tools, and that's what my blog is about, Skeptical Software Tools. my hope has been for years that skeptics would start to build not just blogs and podcasts, but actual pieces of software that do things. And we're starting to see that where people are creating iPhone apps that have reference material. So, for instance, if you want to debate a creationist, there's an app for that that has all the answers to the standard questions. And if you want to debate climate change, there's an app for that. But a couple of outfits have come up with apps, and this is one for, this is the Android version of Ad Hoc, which is by the Sunlight Foundation, and we'll have the links in the show notes. And the idea is it works if you have an iPhone or an Android. You're familiar, you probably have seen an app called Shazam, and there's another one, I forget the name of it, but basically... Well, basically it solves that problem of you're out somewhere, you hear a song, and it's like, oh, I love that song, I'd like to go buy it, but you don't know what the song is, and the DJ, of course, doesn't identify it. Well, Shazam, you hold it up and you press the button, and it identifies the song for you, so you can buy it, and sometimes they'll offer you a link right in the app that you can buy it. Well, this is that concept applied to political ads. In the United States, for anybody watching overseas, there's this problem right now where political ads, political spending is just out of control, and the rules allow these third-party groups to put ads up, and there are always these weird foundations for, you know, Americans for cleaner air, or Americans for more fairness. And it's like, well, I'm pro-fairness, but you find out that it's
for Diet Cola.
Yeah, and then you find out it's actually some horrible hate group, right? So the idea with these things is that you can identify the ad while you're watching it on TV, and it will show you the details. So I'm going to try to do a demo. I'm not going to actually show you the ad. Pink, you picked a really bad time to come in here.
Meow, meow, meow. Meow, meow.
Wait, that's an alien.
I've got a Mitt Romney ad queued up over here, and that's why I dropped the other our window out, and hopefully you'll hear it. Technology
Gotta love
is
technology.
failing me.
I noticed that
here we go.
He made millions off companies that went bankrupt, while workers lost promised health and retirement benefits. His own tax return from last year reveals he made $21 million, yet paid a lower tax rate than many middle-class families. Now Romney's proposing a huge new $150,000 tax cut for the wealthiest 1%, while cutting Medicare and education for us. Mitt Romney, if he wins, we lose. Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Okay, so that ad was by Priorities USA Action. What the heck does that mean? Priorities USA Action? You can tell it's an anti-Romney ad, so you would guess that it's a pro-Obama ad. And sure enough, Ad Hoc shows you the details of the ad, and you can actually click through and actually watch it again on YouTube if maybe you missed it on the TV. And then it's got a detail of what group this is, and it's got a rundown that their total intake was $25 million, and they've spent $22 million of it, and they have $4 million still on hand. That doesn't quite add up right, but okay. And they have this neat little graph. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a graph, and it's basically got blue and red, pro and con, and you can tell from this graph that the red, the only thing with money in it is the red graph, and it goes in the con direction, which means they're only spending against Republican candidates. So there you know who actually paid for this, and it also tells you that Obama himself is opposed to these super PACs, but this super PAC is pro-Obama.
Where do they get their information for this? I mean, is it just they?
Well, Sunlight Foundation is a nonprofit that collects stuff like this and builds apps to figure out how to use the information. And they're all about, Sunlight, Freedom of Information Act, that kind of stuff, trying to, expose as much information as possible that will help people understand what's going on in government. And they have an excellent search engine. If you go to sunlightfoundation.org, I think, we'll have the links in the show notes. They have this great search engine that aggregates all this congressional information. So, for instance, you can look up speeches and bills and committee hearings and all this stuff in one search engine instead of having to go to 5 different places to search different political stuff. So you can find out, for instance, skeptics might be interested in who in Congress has talked about homeopathy or alt-med. You can find the actual speeches. Like, for instance, I found a 10-year-old speech by Ron Paul where he said something really dumb about homeopathy.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, not very surprising. Let me show you real quick. That's a foundation. This one I've got on the iPad, so it's big and you can see it. It's called Super PAC app, and this was built by 2 students at graduate students, I think, at the MIT, and hopefully I can. Oops. Get it to do the same thing. It's the same basic idea. They also have a thing where it says now, and they'll show you. Oh, shush about it. They'll show you ads that have run that they know have run recently. I'm not sure where they're getting that, but they've got the same sort of Shazam button in the middle, and hopefully I can get them to do that because they've got a very interesting display where they can show you not only the money involved, but they can take you directly to the debunk articles and show you what people have written about this ad. There we go.
So these are mainly national politics? I mean, how local does it get?
Sunlight does do some local stuff. I think this one is just national. All right, so you get a nice summary screen here that shows money raised. They've got a slightly different figure, slightly lower figures, but they say that this is a super PAC. It supports Obama. They give you a YouTube link. They give you ways to vote on it. And then right in the middle is this C claims made in this ad, and you can see what PolitiFact has to say about it, an article on some other site, but basically they're articles where people have written an essay responding to this ad, and it's a great way to be skeptical about political ads. And I'd love to see skeptics building things like this. Now, I don't know what the opportunities are for us to target specific things like political ads, but maybe something that scanned UPC codes of dodgy products and then told you why the science behind it was wrong. That would be an interesting smartphone app.
Ding, ding, ding! Someone work on that right now. Go work. Yeah. Yes, you right there watching. Go work on that right now.
So I think this is going to be an interesting area for folks to do. And you see, you'd think something like Shazam was a very involved technology that cost millions of dollars to develop, but these guys were able to. I think the Sunlight one uses some open source technology to do this fingerprinting, and these guys I think partnered with some company because there's a logo that comes up for the fingerprinting technology. So even something as fancy as digitally fingerprinting audio can be done, on the fly by something built by a nonprofit.
The one thing I fear about that is the smart people who have smartphones who care about truth and not lies are the ones who are looking into this.
Right.
The people who are taken in by these ads are not.
Well, that's that's why we need more skeptics to get out there and talk to people and have these apps and say, hey, look, here's where this money's coming from. That's always been a huge pet peeve of mine, though, is these think tanks and now super PACs and these other orgs where they have these incredibly innocuous names.
Oh, here's the key. Anybody who puts the word integrity into their name,
you wouldn't have to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never see Americans for evil. You just never see that one.
I'm starting that right now. Can I get that name? Americans.
Yeah, there's a good wiki for this sort of problem called SourceWatch. It's an outfit out of Wisconsin, and they basically have a wiki.
Yay, Wisconsin!
They have a wiki where they list all these organizations and who backs them and what the history is. And, and some of them are not so bad. Some of them actually try to do some research, but some of those so-called think tanks are really just glorified PR agencies.
Right.
Mhm.
Scary.
So,
But yeah, at least we're not going to see lots of political ads between now and November.
No.
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah,
It'll
I
be
won't
over.
because
Not
I don't
as-
watch TV. So yeah, I won't.
Well, did you see that somebody had bought a Twitter hashtag? Was like
Oh yeah, Romney bought a
Why?
hashtag, didn't he, or a sponsored placement or something?
yeah, it was like failed policies or something like that.
Failed
Oh,
agenda.
Failed agenda. Yeah.
how do you buy a hashtag?
That's Twitter's. You haven't you noticed sponsored tweets?
hmm
I don't get any sponsored tweets. Where would I get those?
You
They-
don't want them.
Yeah.
No, I don't want them. But where would I get them? I
This
mean,
is
where
why
do they appear?
this is exactly why Twitter is clamping down on third-party clients. If you've heard any of that chatter right now, but usually what happens is you get them at the top of a column, like when you do a search, or if you have a column set to a list, or if you have a column set to a search, like I have a Virtual Skeptics column running over here right now, and it will stick a some sort of vaguely related sponsored tweet right in at the top of the column.
In the Twitter app and not in third-party apps?
In the feed?
Yeah,
it'll
in
be
the
your feed.
Twitter app. And Twitter
Oh.
wants third parties to do it too, and they're concerned that the third
Oh.
parties aren't going to do it right. And
Because
so
I
they're
never
sort of
use-
clamping down.
I never use the Twitter client. I never see those because I only
Right.
use third-party.
Yeah,
Okay, got
me
it.
too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Right.
Because the Twitter client is horrible.
Yeah.
So are they gonna limit access to hashtags? Like if I own a hashtag, am I the only one allowed to use it?
No, I
Is
think
that how it
hashtags
works, or-
will still be used. I think it's just it's like a sponsored tweet where you can push something with a specific hashtag up to the top and try to. I guess the idea is to try to jumpstart a hashtag. You know,
Well, what
get it in
happened with
front of
the
a bunch of people at once.
the
Can I
failed
buy first world
agenda?
problems? Sorry, go ahead.
What happened with the failed agenda or whatever it was hashtag was that anti-Romney people started taking it up and
Of
using it
course.
against Romney. So it turned out not to,
Yeah.
sort of
Welcome
be
to the
double-edged
internet,
sword.
Republicans.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Very good.
Okay, so we got about 8 minutes left. We did pretty good for time. We managed to give Tim lots of time this week, which we'd like to do. Let's see. We had the Pakistani girl that was
Any
put in jail for
questions?
blasphemy.
The feel-good story of
Yeah.
the week?
No, actually, I haven't been getting a lot of questions on the feeds that I can see. We have the Britain's new Minister of Magic. We have the UFOs in the Baltic Sea, which I still swear it looks more like a Klingon. Did I say Klingon? I meant never mind. Forget it. And Tim's, I lost it.
What was
Tim's
that?
abs. No, I was thinking of it looked like a Cylon Raider to me, but that was
that's right.
that was a
Okay.
very very bad attempt at another reference that I failed at. So we've got one more thing left on the agenda, our weekly book time.
Oh wait, I
okay.
just want to mention. Can I quickly mention one thing?
Yes, go.
I wanted to do a shout out to the Merseyside Skeptics.
Yay, Merseyside!
Yay.
They have one of the greatest podcasts. I love Skeptics with a K. That's one of my favorite. But they followed in the path of the Australian skeptics in calling out the claim of those special wristbands this week and got their article. Michael Marsh got his article out in The Guardian saying that they tested
Nice.
this new sports band and it utterly failed again. And when the Australian skeptics took on the power balance bracelets, it really initiated a downfall of their sales.
Drove them off the continent, man.
It really did. I
Yeah.
mean, they were gone out of Australia, and now they're super cheap here in the U.S. because they're worthless. So, I kudos to them for getting press on that.
Yes,
Really
yes.
great job.
Well done.
Skeptical activism
Yay.
works.
Right. Cool.
Okay. So now book time.
What's our page number?
Who's gonna come up with a page?
Let's see here.
My book has.
Let's do opening lines.
Opening lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Ugh.
You have Moby Dick, don't you?
Call me Ishmael.
Actually, I think I can do opening lines. Who wants to go
This
first?
page intentionally left blank.
Oh, that was awesome.
Was that yours, Tim?
Yeah, no, actually, that's not the opening. I assume we're skipping the introduction.
Yep.
Are we
Chapter
still-
one.
Okay.
So go ahead, Tim. We'll go backwards.
Okay. Press release date, November 1st, 1993. We didn't make a mistake when we wrote in our previous releases that New York would be destroyed on September 4th and October 14th, 1993. We didn't make a mistake. Not even a teeny-eeny one.
Wow. You're up, Sharon.
Wow.
We may reasonably call Aristotle the founder of the science of zoology, for he was the first to collect all the facts then known concerning natural history and arrange them in a coordinated manner. One must not expect to find in his work anything in the nature of natural science in our modern sense of the term, yet his book, though not free from error, shows for its time a surprising degree of perception.
Go, Bob.
Ahora que el obispo de la diócesis de Renada, a la que pertenece esta mi querida aldea de Valverde de Lucerna, anda a lo que se dice, promoviendo el poscura para la beatificación de nuestro Don Manuel, o mejor, San Manuel Bueno, etc. Show off.
Nice.
I think you just won the podcast.
Bob,
Go, Eve.
When I was younger and still lived a secular life, I heard from the older people about Paschasius, a deacon from the Roman Church, whose sound and eloquent books of the Holy Ghost are still available to us.
Oh, wow. That's far you're going to go? Okay.
Yeah, I could go more, but...
In the past 2 decades, some of the most extraordinary successes in space exploration have emphasized the growing importance of on-orbit servicing. As space explorers, our challenges have moved beyond simply launching complex spacecraft and systems. We are faced with the need to more fully exploit the flight systems already launched, to construct large structures in situ to enable new scientific ventures, and to provide systems that reliably and cost-effectively support the next steps in space exploration.
I know who that was. That was Dr. Seuss.
No. Tim gets to reveal first.
Anybody recognize mine?
Oh, I
Excellent.
love that.
Oh, I haven't read that yet. Yep.
Mistakes Were Made by Carol Tavris and Elliot Aronson. A great book on cognitive
Fantastic
Yes.
book, yes.
Mhm.
I've heard.
Yeah.
Go, Sharon.
I have Unnatural History, an illustrated bestiary by Colin Clare. And I was hoping to read the dragon part, in honor of Dragon Con, but it's got all these mythological animals in it and the good stories about them. So.
I have Miguel de Unamuno's San Manuel Bueno Martir, which is one of my favorite stories. It's about a priest who, like Jesus, does not believe.
What?
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's awesome. It's a really great story.
You're going to have to link. Is there an English version? Because there's no possible way I could read it out like that. But
Yeah.
by the way, your
for you.
pronunciation was incredible. as far as I could
It
tell.
probably wasn't.
I did say as far as I could tell.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's good qualifier there. Yeah.
Go ahead, Eve.
Mine was, specifically an excerpt from the Dialogues of Gregory the Great on the spirit of Paschasius the Deacon from Medieval Ghost Stories by Andrew Jones, which is a collection of medieval stories of the dead and undead and walking dead and pissed off dead and such like.
Wow.
So not unlike the current ghost stories we have today.
Yes.
They share a common theme.
Mm-hmm.
Well, mine was nothing so interesting. Mine is the October 2010 NASA report on on-orbit satellite servicing. There you go. Which is
Ooh.
yeah.
Is it a
it's
journal?
Well, it's no. This is a published report. This is what they did to assess what they learned from servicing like Hubble and the space station, using humans and trying to exploit it with robotic technology. This is the project I work on is based on this report.
So that was the only book that you brought this week with you?
No, I have at least one more because I'll still be here in Texas next week. So I have a Kindle too. So if I feel like that one's not good enough, I'll go switch to Kindle.
Good idea.
Excellent.
Well, that's another Virtual Skeptics. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It's fun.
And now we dance. Come on, Tim.
This is the part of the podcast when we dance.
Want to touch my monkey?
No, I want to touch a robot arm.
And on that note, I'm turning it off now.